My family recently traveled to Switzerland, just the close relatives, according to my mother's social media post. I was not invited, but somehow my travel card was involved. My bank statement revealed 6 plane tickets, stays at 4-star hotels, and ski equipment rentals. Then my brother accidentally sent me a text message. He was too careless to realize what he had done. I responded, "He just did." I immediately canceled every purchase and reported their identifications on the booking website. At 6:03 in the morning, my phone buzzed 22 times. When my mother uploaded that picture with the caption, I assumed it was an old memory from a trip I had missed years back. Yet something about the lighting and the clothing seemed current. I zoomed in. Jake was wearing the hoodie I had gifted him last Christmas. The snow appeared freshly fallen. My father was dressed in his bright red parka I find so bold. It dawned on me. This was not a photo from the past. I scrolled through the comments. A family friend asked if the Alps were truly as stunning as they appeared. Another cousin wrote, "Wow, Switzerland, truly living the dream." Then I noticed my aunt's message saying, "Surprise Sarah is not there with you all." Nobody replied. The last time I had seen them was approximately 3 weeks ago. I had proposed a simple family getaway to Oregon. Just a weekend in a cabin with hot springs and some hiking. My parents seemed uncomfortable. My mother mentioned that money was tight. Jake muttered something about upcoming exams. I ended up paying for lunch. It seems I've been covering expenses lately. A few days afterward, my father called asking if I could keep the emergency credit card active just in case. I agreed, trusting them completely. It was not as if they had ever done anything questionable. Yet here I was, staring at a photo of them in Zermatt alongside 2 unfamiliar people. Soon, I recognized them as my parents' friends, Scott and Diane. These were the type of individuals who smuggle alcohol into celebrations and argue fiercely over karaoke at family gatherings. They definitely did not feel like family. Neither did Jake's girlfriend, who appeared in another picture making a silly face atop a ski lift in the background. I opened my banking app without knowing what to expect. 6 airline tickets from San Francisco to Zurich, charges surpassing $8,700, all within a span of 2 days. Bookings included 4-star hotels, train rides to Interlaken, ski equipment rentals, fondue dinners, even a hot air balloon excursion. All expenses were on my emergency credit card, which had a limit of $9,000. They managed to max it out. I sat there stunned, but not yet angry, until a message from Jake popped up. He had intended to text someone else saying, "Lol." I gazed at the message for what felt like a full minute before responding. He just did. Then I took action immediately. For the next 2 hours, I was on the phone reversing every charge possible and flagging their identities on the booking platform. They had unleashed havoc using my travel wallet account. Fortunately, I had all their passport details, photographs, and ticket confirmations at my fingertips. I even sent a fraud alert to the ski resort along with a copy of my ID. Cancellations began to roll in. When I contacted the bank, I informed them the card was stolen by someone I personally knew. I was telling the truth. By the time I finished sorting everything out, I felt exhausted but relieved. Jake's responsibility and 5 frozen accounts. Their hotel bookings canceled. Ski tickets disappeared. Rental van called off. Even their dinner reservation at that mountaintop rotating restaurant vanished. Then at 6:03 a.m., my phone buzzed 22 times. I ignored it. Not the first 3 calls from Mom, nor the 5 from Jake, not the one from Scott's burner number, nor the calls from Dad. But when Dad rang again at 7:41 a.m., I answered. "Sarah, we need $4,200 to get back to San Francisco. Can you just help us for now?" No response. I said, "Hope you enjoy your time there. You'll have plenty to explain when you return. Trouble is already waiting." Then I ended the call. Let them feel it. They would be back in 2 days. Jake has his own money. He can pay this time. I was far from finished. Not even close. They landed in San Francisco early Thursday morning. I did not need to track the flight. The update came from Mrs. Lawson, who lives across the street from my parents. She peers out her window like a living security camera. Her message arrived at 6:12 a.m. They're back. Suitcases look destroyed. Your dad is limping. Nobody smiled. Thought you should know. I was already dressed. I arrived at 6:41. Diane was yelling into her phone barefoot on the driveway. Scott looked like he had been punched while hungover. Jake was dragging a broken Samsonite up the steps while his girlfriend sat on it, too exhausted or too spoiled to lift a finger. My parents were there too. They stood near the door as if waiting for a sentence. I did not bother greeting them. I parked on the opposite side of the street, approached directly, and got straight to the matter. You owe me $4,000 in non-refundable fees. You have 3 days. Mom blinked as if English was foreign to her. Dad attempted to respond but stopped when I pulled out my phone and displayed a folder titled Fraud Documents. Screenshots captured every transaction, dates, times, their names, their faces from hotel check-in records, passport scans, even their skiing itinerary. All of it extracted from my digital travel wallet. They truly exploited every saved file, every stored password, and even my emergency credit line. They infiltrated all my digital data to arrange an extravagant European holiday, and then shamelessly shared it as if they had won some contest. Jake stepped forward and said this was ridiculous, accusing me of overreacting. I turned toward him and replied, "You left me out, deceived me openly, stole my money, and then called me stupid in a message not even intended for me." He sneered and said it was supposed to be a trip for those who actually know how to relax, and that I simply would not fit in. Yes, I gathered that from the caption on Instagram. Just us, the inner circle. His girlfriend muttered something quietly, but I did not catch it, nor did I care. I shifted my focus back to my parents. You abused trust and turned it into robbery. I froze all transactions and reversed what I could, but I still lost $40,000. You will return it, or I will seek legal action. That finally got their attention. Attention. Mom began to say something gentle, almost like an apology that never quite lands, but I interrupted her. You used Scott and Diane's names on the reservations. That is impersonation. You had no right to do any of that. 3 days. Do not call. Do not text. Pay. Then I left. By the end of the day, they managed to gather the money. Uncle Mark came through. Later, I heard he gave Jake a lecture that lasted an hour and finished with, "You're lucky I do not send you to rehab just for being this foolish." They transferred the money to me that night. No subject line, no message. Fine. I marked the file as repaid, archived the folder, and went to bed. Slept like a rock. The next morning, Jake was standing outside my building. No text, no warning, just there in a hoodie as if expecting some sitcom-style resolution. You ruined the trip for everyone, he said. I leaned on the railing. You did not invite me. You could have handled it quietly, differently. You all excluded me, lied about the reasons, used me, mocked me, then hoped I would not notice. And now what do you want? Sympathy. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. You act like you think you are better than everyone. I did not answer because I am better than those who do what they did. He left. No apology, no shame, just a bitter expression. He probably rehearsed that in the mirror. But he had a bigger problem ahead. I had been paying his tuition for a year and a half. Next semester, he was on his own. I did not make a speech. I did not call for a family meeting. I simply logged into the university portal, navigated to the finance section, and removed my card from Jake's tuition plan. I turned off autopay and closed the browser tab. He probably assumed I had forgotten. The payment deadline slipped by quietly. About a week later, the system flagged his outstanding balance, $6,042. A hold was placed on his account. No registration, no student portal access, only a polite email stating, "Your enrollment has been suspended due to non-payment." That was when the silence shattered. Jake texted first, sounding casual. "Hey, something went wrong with the payment. I think the tuition did not process. Can you check it?" I left that message unread. Then came a phone call. I ignored it. After that, a voicemail arrived, half worried, half demanding. "Can you please just fix this today? I have labs starting soon." Not a single word about his own responsibility, simply expecting the system to keep working without interruption. Then Diane stepped in with her attempts. She left 3 voicemails. The last one stretched nearly 5 minutes, starting calm, too calm, before drifting into a wandering speech about forgiveness, family mistakes, and how I needed to stop letting money define me. That phrase stayed with me. Money defines you. As if I had not spent years covering their rent while Dad was unemployed. As if I had not invested tens of thousands of dollars in Jake's tuition last year alone, working weekends to keep up with the expenses. They never cared about money when I was their personal ATM. The next day, Dad sent me a message. Short and emotionless. "I understand. Do what you have to do." That one hit a bit differently, but not enough to make a change. Then Jake tried once more. "You are seriously not paying." I responded, "That is correct." The following call was heated. "You are a joke, Sarah. You are destroying my future just because of a vacation. That shows how small-minded you are. No, I am holding you responsible. That is how exhausted I feel. You do not understand. I need this semester. I am already behind. I never asked you to reserve ski trips with my card or show them off as if I did not exist. Honestly, you are bitter. You are a thief." After that, there was silence. For a moment, I thought he disconnected. Then he said something I will never forget. "You were never family. You were simply a wallet. You just dislike being empty now." I ended the call. 3 days later, my aunt messaged me. Not even one I am particularly close to. She said I should be ashamed because Jake was family, and that I should have dealt with this privately. I did not reply. Then a cousin reached out, followed by another. Someone even sent me an email with an article about financial boundaries and compassion. They had no idea about the whole situation. Then Sunday arrived. I woke early and drove to my parents' home. I knocked once, but there was no answer. I did not expect them to be there. The spare keys were still hanging inside the garage on the rack. I took them and left in the silver Civic I had given them the previous year. Back then, I owned 2 cars, and they were always borrowing rides. I thought I was being kind. Now, I was simply reclaiming what was mine. That Civic was mine once again. I parked it in my driveway, and I sat quietly for a moment with the engine still running. No calls came through. No messages arrived. I suppose they finally realized you cannot spend years relying on someone as a backup and then cry betrayal when they decide to let go. They must have thought I was bluffing. But this was far from a game of poker. It was the moment to face the consequences of their actions. 3 weeks had passed since the tuition crisis with no word from Jake. No texts, no anger, just silence that felt suspicious on its own. I suspected he was desperately searching behind the scenes for another bailout, perhaps hoping I would give in if he waited long enough. But he did not wait. The phone rang on a Thursday afternoon from an unknown number. I answered. "Hi, is this Sarah Palmer?" a voice asked. "Yes. This is Jenna from Student Accounts at Selledge University. We have been trying to contact you about an unpaid tuition bill. You are listed here as the financial guarantor on Jake Palmer's account." My heart sank. There must be some mistake. I never gave my consent for that. There was a pause. We have a signed document with your name and signature on file. I requested to see it. She sent it by email. Opening the PDF, there it was. My full name, my address, my phone number, and worst of all, a forged signature that almost, but not quite, matched mine. The checked box for assuming financial responsibility in case of non-payment hit deeper than any insult I had ever felt. I froze. Jake had not only betrayed my trust, he had also falsified legal papers to do it. I immediately called her back and submitted a fraud complaint. I provided my identification, an authentic signature sample, and screenshots of conversations with Jake. She mentioned the case would be investigated, but until a conclusion was reached, I would be held accountable. If it remained unresolved, the debt would damage my credit history. This went beyond betrayal. This felt like a battle. I had not contacted Jake yet. I needed someone who could grasp the gravity of what had just taken place. So that weekend, I drove to my grandfather's home. He had always been different, more removed from the turmoil affecting the rest of the family. No false smiles or guilt trips, just quiet understanding and a steady memory. I brought the forged document with me and sat across from him at his small kitchen table, presenting it calmly without exaggeration. He read it carefully, then looked up and asked a single question. Had I already reported it? I said yes. He nodded once, rose, went into the back room, and returned with a small locked box I had never seen before. After unlocking it, he took out a folded deed and handed it to me. It was for the family lake cabin, the one I had not visited since I was 13. He said, I am giving this to you. No one else deserves it. He promised to call his lawyer on Monday. I just sat there holding the deed, uncertain how to respond. He had never given anything like that to anyone in our family before. Then he added, I always knew you were the only one who would grow up. On the drive home, Jake finally broke the silence. I saw his name appear on my phone. My phone rang across the screen. I let it ring twice before picking up. Stop what you're doing, I told him. I know you informed the school. You forged my signature. I had no other option, Sarah. I thought you would understand. Like always. Understand fraud? It is $6,000. You could have simply paid it. I could have, but you made sure I did not want to pay. There was a pause. Then he changed the subject. I'm about to be expelled. I cannot register. They're threatening to send it to collections. Are you really going to abandon me like this? Yes, you show no mercy. No, I am just tired of being your safety net. He ended the call. This time, no harsh words, no guilt, just silence. An hour later, my mother called. Her tone began gently. I know things are difficult between you and Jake, but we cannot believe you're letting this ruin everything. Then her voice turned cold. You act like we are strangers. No, I thought you turned me into an outsider the moment you booked flights to Switzerland with my card and labeled it just the close ones. Then a cousin contacted me, one I had not spoken to in a year. She said I was becoming a real disappointment. She said I used to be generous. She said I was changing. Maybe I was. The next day, I went to my parents' house, entered through the side garage door, and took the Civic key from the hook. I did not announce myself. I just drove the car home. That car was registered in my name. Anyway, no one stopped me. No one said a word. I guess they all just accepted it. I realized the same thing at the exact moment. I was finished. And the woman they considered just a safety net was about to become the greatest challenge they had ever faced. By the end of the month, Jake was officially out. No classes, no re-enrollment, no backup plan. I verified it myself by logging into the university's public directory. His name was completely removed. He had disappeared from the system. I suppose he believed someone would jump in at the final moment. maybe my parents, perhaps another cousin. But nobody did. Not this time. I kept waiting for more chaos, more messages, more anger. Yet everything turned strangely quiet. Then gradually, something surprising began to unfold. People started to change loyalties. Not all of them. My mom remained furious. She sent brief, cold texts expressing disappointment and saying I should have resolved matters privately, as if it was some workplace disagreement. However, her tone was different now, less confident, less commanding. Still, cousins, aunts, even family friends who I thought fully accepted the story that I had abandoned, everyone started to contact me. At first, they simply wanted to know the truth about what happened. Then they shared information I never knew. One cousin revealed that my mom had already asked her husband if he could co-sign a small loan for Jake's education. Another said, my parents had even suggested refinancing the house, blaming me for putting them in a difficult position. And then, most unexpectedly, one of Jake's own friends sent me a message on Instagram. They simply wanted to say, I understand why you cut him off. He told us what happened, though he left out many details, but we figured it out. You are not the villain, Sarah. Honestly, we are all a bit amazed. It felt unreal. Shortly after, my grandfather's lawyer reached out to me. The lake cabin's ownership transfer was completed, but he mentioned something I did not anticipate. My grandfather revised his will last week. He removed your parents and Jake as heirs. He no longer trusts them. He named you the only beneficiary on his side. I never requested any of this. I never wished to be involved in some inheritance dispute. Yet clearly, my grandfather had observed enough. He had watched everything unfold silently, as he always did, and made his decision. That very weekend, I decided to visit the cabin just to see it with my own eyes. It was peaceful, secluded, slightly worn but felt pristine, as if it was a place where no one would shout, lie, or steal credit cards. I sat on the back porch for more than an hour, gazing across the lake. I had not experienced that kind of tranquility in years. When I returned, my father was waiting outside my apartment. No message, no warning, just leaning against the railing by the stairs. I just want to talk, he said. Not to fix anything, just to be honest. I let him speak. He confessed they had gone too far, that they had depended on me too much and expected too much. So much that they had convinced Jake he deserved everything, yet had no responsibility for anything. Even though at first he disagreed with my approach, he now understood. You were right to set boundaries, he told me. Then he extended his hand. I wasn't prepared for that, but I accepted it. There was little left to discuss. Later that evening, Jake sent me a message. All you needed to do was help like before. You ruined everything. I read it once, then again. Afterwards, I archived the conversation and moved forward. Because by this point, everyone finally grasped what I had known for quite some time. I was not the problem. I was simply the only one ready to stop being part of it. By the time spring arrived, I hadn't heard from Jake for nearly a month. The quiet was no longer deafening. It became expected. I had no clue where he was living, how he managed day to day, or if he had secured a steady job. Part of me wanted to ask, just to satisfy curiosity, but curiosity was what had led me into trouble before. Then one afternoon, a message appeared. It was brief and uncertain. It's Jake. Can we talk? My initial reaction was why now? Still, I agreed. We met at the back of a rundown cafe near the community college he used to ridicule. He looked thinner, older, like someone forced to mature under harsh fluorescent lights and sleepless nights. He did not dress to apologize, which somehow made it feel more genuine. He began with what I had anticipated, admitting he realized he had gone too far. He never truly grasped what I was carrying until it all came crashing down on him. He admitted he had spent years making excuses because it was simpler than making changes. Then he said something unexpected. "I didn't just mess up your money. I ruined how you saw all of us." That, he said, was what he regretted the most. I paused for a moment and said, "I don't hate you, but I don't trust you either." He nodded quietly and confessed he hadn't expected me to. Then he surprised me with an offer I never saw coming. "I want to pay you back." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it sounded absolutely impossible. He remained steady. "See, little by little, even if it takes years," he said. I didn't respond. I just stood, nodded, and walked away. I didn't ask him to keep in touch. I didn't offer to help him start fresh. I didn't hug him or forgive him or create any drama. I simply left it as it was. Some debts go beyond money. Some peace doesn't come from fixing things. It comes from leaving them broken and choosing to move on anyway. That weekend, I drove back to the cabin. The air was still chilly, the lake partly frozen, but I opened all the windows anyway, allowing everything to breathe. I built a fire, sipped coffee on the porch, and didn't check my phone even once. That's when I realized I wasn't just guarding my peace anymore. I was truly living in it. A cousin who once called me cold texted a few days later, asking how I was. He said he admired how I handled everything. He mentioned it made him reconsider how much he had allowed others to take advantage of him. People took notice. They were observing closely. It seems that standing up for yourself inspires many of the silent bystanders to find courage as well. Even those who never voiced a word while you were being torn apart inside. 2 weeks later, I visited my grandfather once more. Our conversation did not touch on Jake or my parents or anything overly intense. We simply sat on his porch, watching birds clash over scraps of bread as if it were a matter of survival. Then he looked at me and said, "I expected you to become bitter from everything." "I thought that would happen too," I replied. "But it never did. Instead, you grew stronger." That was all. No lengthy speeches or final advice because I had already received what mattered. The money was no longer important. The tuition fees, the trip, the forged signatures, the treachery, it all faded into the background. What truly counted was the proof I gained that I never depended on any of them to feel complete. Once I stopped letting them erode my spirit, I became someone they could never break again. It has been a year since Switzerland. Since the message that sparked everything, since I withdrew every penny, cut off all support, and let the bridge collapse on its own. Jake never repaid me, not a single penny. But he also never asked for anything more. He is now employed full-time. Last I heard, he was working warehouse shifts, mostly at night. It is far from glamorous, and not what he envisioned, but it is honest and peaceful. The parents have yet to offer a true apology. Not really. They avoid the issue. They ask how I am doing. They send a birthday card without a signature, as if it were some routine gesture meant to fix something deeply damaged. I do not pursue it. I do not pretend it does not exist. I simply allow it to exist as it is. The family now speaks about me differently. It is less about me being cold, and more like I acted on something they wish they had the bravery to do themselves. Boundaries are contagious, it seems. Since then, 2 cousins stopped lending money to their own parents. Another cousin left a toxic family chat completely. As for me, I have quit justifying my actions. I used to explain every choice, soften every position, and cushion every truth with excuses, just to maintain peace. Now I no longer do that. Now I only say no or silence, allowing the quiet to work in its way. Sometimes peace is not gentle. Sometimes it is heavy like a locked door or like walking away, but it remains peace. There is something strange about losing so much and yet feeling more complete after. I do not miss calls that came loaded with conditions. I do not miss being a fallback option. I do not miss being needed so intensely that I lost myself. The lake cabin turned into a kind of ritual. Each month I drive there, open the windows, start a fire, and stroll along the shoreline. I do not bring anyone along. No other family members know I still visit. It belongs to me now in every possible way. And the silence does not feel like loneliness. It feels like something entirely different. Like proof that I made it through them. That I endured being treated as a utility, a fallback, a bank account with a face. Sometimes I look back, not with regret but with clear understanding. They would never stop taking until I chose to stop giving. And I finally did. Maybe a bit too late, maybe just in time. One of my aunts bumped into me at the supermarket a few weeks ago. The same one who once told me I should feel ashamed for what I did to Jake. This time she said very little, just a brief nod and a quiet, awkward, "Hey." I nodded back and kept walking. You can tell when someone's story shifts behind your back. When they quietly move from thinking she went too far to maybe she was right. That is all right. I do not need acknowledgement or forgiveness. I only seek peace. And every time I get into my car knowing no one else has a spare key. Every time I check my accounts and see my own name, not someone else's debt. Every time I say no without justifying it, that is when I realize I am not bitter. I am free. Sometimes I wonder if they gather and talk about it, about what happened, how it all broke down, if they replay their decisions or simply blame me because it feels easier that way. Perhaps they say I changed, became cold, selfish, too proud. But I did not change. They reached the limit of what I was willing to endure. And when I refused to bend, when I would not break, they called it betrayal. But I call it setting a boundary. The truth is, they never feared losing me. They feared losing the connection with me. Once that link was severed, they had no choice but to face me directly. Not the supportive daughter, nor the giving sister, nor the dependable safety net. Just me. They disliked the reality because it demanded accountability. Jake used to message me every week with news about school, grades, extracurricular activities, and ambitious goals, all meticulously designed to keep the support flowing. After everything, not a single update came. No word if he returned to school, settled his debts, or took responsibility for his actions. It is not my duty to inquire. That was something they never grasped. Offering help is not an inherent trait, it is a decision, and I am allowed to cease making that choice. My mother still sends holiday greetings that sound warm but carry no substance, no apology, no genuine dialogue, simply gentle words masking painful silence. She might mention a cousin who recently had a baby or an aunt relocating to Arizona, then add a, "We'd love to see you sometime." I do not reply, not out of harshness, but because I am healed. Those who are healed do not willingly walk back into the flames just to prove they are immune to burns. I once believed forgiveness meant reopening doors. Now I understand that sometimes forgiveness means quietly closing them and moving forward. Some people do not deserve the new version of you. They only knew the version they could exhaust. They are not entitled to meet the one who finally replenished herself. Last week I received a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten, without a return address. I recognized the handwriting before even opening it. Jake. It was brief, just 3 short paragraphs. He mentioned he was working full-time, still in the warehouse, still trying to get back into school. He admitted he had a long journey ahead. He did not ask for money or assistance, simply expressed hope that I was doing well, and assured that he meant what he said about paying me back. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and slipped it into the back of my filing cabinet, not because I needed to keep it, but because I wasn't ready to discard it. Some wounds form scars, some remain open, and others fade like bruises you nearly forget until something touches them again. I still think about that trip, the photo, the caption, just the people who were truly close. I used to replay those words like a challenge. Now I hear them differently. They believed it. They just never understood who the close ones really were until I stopped being one of them. I used to feel guilty for walking away. Used to wonder if I was the villain in their story. But then I remembered I never controlled their narrative. I only controlled mine. And in my story, I stopped letting love be a transaction. I stopped allowing family to be an excuse for mistreatment. I stopped giving pieces of myself just to keep others comfortable. The lake cabin still stands. The water is clearer now. The silence deeper. The air lighter. Sometimes I take a book with me. Sometimes I simply sit with my coffee and allow the breeze to play with my hair. There is no sound, no remorse, no acting involved. Just me, Sarah. Not the provider, not the problem solver, not the person others depended on until she broke down. Just a woman who understood the price of tranquility and ultimately realized she deserved it.